Thank you for allowing me to be part of your group. Project management. I was here, I believe, 2 years ago, and I spoke about, not on leadership, but about position, and how it's not about, leadership is not about people, it's about position. It's about positions, about people. So most of you in positions that you're at, you understand in order for your team to be successful, it can't be just because you're the VP or the director or whatever title that might be on your door. It's about the people that you work with. Well, here's something else. Not only did you work with them, but you have to communicate with them as well. How many people, with a show of hands, has found it really easy to communicate with your team? Wow, nobody. Well, thank you for being honest, because I would call you a liar if you actually put your hand up. Because we find it very difficult to communicate with people. And there are millions of reasons why, and you probably already know them. But my job, my goal is to break it down very easy and simple so that everybody here has the opportunity to understand what communication is all about, how it can impact you, how it can impact your team, and most importantly, what we need to do to be successful. So I know what is effective communication. What are some of the noises? And we'll talk about what the noises are and what I define noises. And of course, what can we do to alleviate those noises and what we can do to find a better way so that you don't have to struggle with those noises. I have this quote, and we talked about at the beginning about how easy it is to communicate, because we all think we do it. George Bernard Shaw says, the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that we're doing it. How many of you had your boss say, I told you to do this? Or your client said, I asked you to do that. And you're looking at them with the deer and the headlight look going, have you know what we're talking about? And they swear up and down, they've told you this a million times. This is what I asked for. And you're still staring at them going, we never had this conversation. How many of you heard on being on the same page? Have we ever used that? Sometimes we're not even in the same library with the people that we communicate with. It's because of what they think and what we think can be two different things. There was a research done in 2001 on time spent on communicating. And I found this to be very fascinating. Because 30% of the time, you are not communicating. So think about what that 30% might be. Think about the 70% of the time that you are communicating. In 24 hours, if my math is correct, that's about 17 hours you spend a day communicating. And the other 7 that you're not. Think about those 17 hours that you are awake, breathing. How are you communicating? What are you communicating to? Whom are you communicating to? They did another research where they broke down the 70% into 4 main categories: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So just because we're project managers and you do this all the time, you like charts, you like graphs, well, the writing part, how many people think they know the percentage of the time that you spend communicating through writing? You just shout out a number. Out of the 4 numbers up there,
9%.
16%? 16%? All right, let's see what we get. Only 9% of the time you're communicating through writing. All right, how about reading? Out of the 3 to the left, what do you think?
16.
16? Let's see. 60% of the time you spend communicating through reading. Now, the difference between the 30 and the 45%, speaking and listening, which one do you think is actually speaking and which one do you think is listening? So show of hands, how do you think speaking is 45?
I think listening should be about 16%.
Listening should be 60%.
Listening is less.
Yeah.
Well, let's see.
You're only communicating, you're talking only.
Speaking is actually 30%, and listening, you spend 45% of the time listening to people. Just think about Toastmasters just right now. The percentage of time you actually were speaking and the percentage of time you're actually listening, and when you're reading and when you're writing. That's what they were talking about. Now, I like cakes. I like dessert cakes. I like all kinds of cakes. Want to reward me with something? Bring me a cake. That's a 6-layer cake that you probably, if you're good enough, you might have your birthday, but you might find this at a wedding, an anniversary, an engagement, some type of a big event. I can guarantee you that that cake didn't take 5 minutes to bake. Probably going to take an hour to make. That's communication. The communication of learning doesn't take 5 minutes. It takes time. You got to mix all the ingredients together. You have to make sure that you get the right consistency, the right amounts. And then you have to now stack it together so it doesn't fall over like a Jenga, pulling up little blocks. That's a 6-layer cake that I call the 6 layers of communication. First one's called the sender. This is the person who is attempting to convey a message to you. So this could be your manager, this could be a client, this could be your coworker. But somebody here is trying to send a message. This might be you sending a message to your team about what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, and how it needs to be done. You're sending a message. You are the sender. This starts with you. So if we, for the context of our discussion, I'm going to make you the sender and everybody else a receiver. All right? So when you hear sender, you think about yourself. And a receiver, think about anybody else you might be communicating with. So you are the sender. You are conveying a message. What is that message? Here, your message is your feeling, a thought, or idea that you want the receiver to understand. What do you want your team to understand? What do you want your team to understand? This is the message. This is something that belongs to you. I always ask when I've done events and I've worked with clients, I ask them, how important is your message? On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is your message? And if it's a 1, okay, then don't give me any information. I'm good. If it's a 10, you want to give me as much information as possible so that I can help you to be successful. So that's what your message is. You can do it intentionally. That's going up to someone and saying, hi, how are you doing? That's an intentional act of communicating. You can also do it unintentionally, which I hope no one will be doing this during my workshop and sleeping, because that would be really, really sad. But sleeping is unintentional. You're showing someone through unintentional action by you sleeping what you think about their message. How about verbally? We do this all the time. What I'm doing right now, I'm speaking to you. The same thing you did when you did your table topics. The same thing you do with your clients. You're verbally speaking to somebody. Hopefully they can actually hear what you have to say. And it's non-verbally. Babies are great. They don't say much. But that smile tells you a million things about that baby's feeling. Or how about the handshake? What does that handshake mean? Welcome. Thank you. How are you doing? They haven't said a word. But that's an action. It's a body language. And in Toastmasters, we learn about body language and communication. We communicate on so many levels, subconsciously and unconsciously, that people, you don't even know what you're saying to someone. By a smile, I can say, hey, I'm glad you're here. I can give you a sad look at Kelly and go, why are you here? Just by not saying a word. Body language is important, but that's your message. The channel is the medium by which you are sending that message. This right here is very important, because we send out our messages in so many different ways. For example, I'm going to borrow this for a second. Project managers, we have an assignment to do. We have a major project. And I need to communicate a message. Now I need to ask this class, this group of highly skilled, intelligent project managers who've done thousands of projects, how many ways can I communicate to my team? Just yell it out, put your hand up. How many times, what different ways can you communicate to your team? Email. Email? All right, let's do that. So we have, how else do you communicate to your team? Slack. 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 What's Slack?
Communication tool.
Like a WhatsApp.
Messenger, like Skype.
So we'll do Skype. So we'll say a software program.
Yes.
Okay. So software program. All right. How else can you communicate to your team?
Meetings.
Meetings?
Yeah.
Be more specific. What are you doing in your
Verbally.
meetings?
Verbal.
Verbal? Okay. Verbal. All right. How else can you communicate to your team?
Non-verbal.
Non-verbal? Okay. How How else can you communicate to your team?
Putting the board, Kanban board.
On a board? So like a
Visual.
visual? All right. Anything else?
Appreciation notes or something like that. Like you just appreciate people.
Indirectly,
Indirect.
by actually doing certain things in a certain way,
Okay.
you communicate maybe a way of doing things, because we just use the example leading by example. So by doing something,
So
you
an action?
indirectly
Yeah.
communicate, convey a way of doing things.
All right. So what is so by action?
Action,
We'll
yeah.
say it works. Anything else? How about sign language? Can you communicate something through sign language?
Yeah.
How about texting? Can you communicate through texting? The point of this is there are many ways that you can communicate with your team. There isn't just one way. The problem that we have in communication, we think this is the way it works. I have to talk to you, you have to talk back to me. It's the only way it works. It doesn't work any other way. And if our message doesn't get out, it's not my fault. We only do it one way. There's a saying that says there's always more than one way to skin a cat. Anybody ever heard that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always more than one way to communicate. And if you can't find me through text, you can't find me through email, you can pick up the phone, you can tell someone who knows me to find me. There's always a way that we can communicate. Don't let one message that isn't working, one method, stop you from getting your message out. Because again, as we said at the beginning, how important is your message? How important is your message? If it's a scale between 1 to 10 and it's a 10, then you're going to do whatever it takes to get that message out. Why? Because it's important. Your message is important. It has to be, or you wouldn't have had that feeling, thought, or idea. So whenever you're in a situation where you're stuck, I can't find the boss. I put a note underneath his door, he didn't answer it. That can't stop you. That can't stop you. Your project needs way too much just to have a note not be seen. I told the secretary, I told the receptionist, that's nice, find another way. Your project manager, this is what you do. You troubleshoot. Nothing stops you. You're like with the thing that the postal service, no sleet, no snow, no hail, no rapture, earthquake, anything like that will stop them from getting their message out. Your message. That's how important it is. This is one thing that I found out through years of hitting my head against the wall. Present a message in a way that the receiver finds comfortable. Too many times we get really selfish and we say, I only can talk to Kelly verbally. That's it. I can only talk to David through email. That's it. What if David doesn't do well with emails? What if Kelly doesn't do well with verbal? Did you even ask them what's the best way to communicate to you? Instead of sitting here going, this is how I do it, think about the message is important. Yes, it is. I get it. It's all about you. I understand. Scale of 1 to 10. If my message is a 10, I'm going to find the best way in which you can understand the message. So guess what? So that you can complete the message. It sounds funny, but I've had bosses who will always walk through your door and they will spew out all information. And it doesn't work that way with me. I've got a million things I'm doing right now. Send it in an email. Write it down in the notes. I can look it over and I can give you the questions after I've read the notes. But when you spew out whatever you want at 100 miles an hour, I'm lost now to interpret what words you said, how you said it, and when you said it. And then when I do the event, the project, you're like, that's not what I said. That's not what I meant. I understand, but guess what? You're not the only person in the room. You're not the only event I'm doing. Find out what works for them and communicate that way. It's very important. I like to call it the Swiss cheese information. Is everybody happy to do this? You have a project, and you're sitting here going, what are you asking me? Where are you going with this? Sometimes you have to fill in the blanks. Sometimes that is your job as a project manager, is to find out. You have to fill in the blanks. Swiss cheese information. It's not great, it's not fun, but now you as the sender ask yourself, are you sending out Swiss cheese information? Does somebody have to read between the lines to find out what it is you're saying? Or is it plain as day? And it's like I like to tell people, if I give you information to David, can David take that exact same information and go to Kelly? Can Kelly take that information and go to, sorry, your name again is?
Ed.
To Ed. Will all three understand the same information? Or is David thinking one way and Kelly thinks another and David thinks another, and they're not even close? Then that's on me as the sender. I haven't communicated in a way that if Ed goes on vacation and leaves it on Kelly's desk or leaves it on David's desk, will the project be successful? Think about that, Swiss cheese information. The receiver. This is the person who interprets your message, and they will determine if it's understood. Okay? This is important. They will determine whether that message is understood or not. It doesn't matter what you thought or how you felt. That's great. But if they don't understand it, do you think it's going to get done?
No.
Thank you. This is not going to get done. Are you going to be happy about it? Probably not. You're going to be frustrated? Probably not. Or sorry, you probably will be frustrated. Why? Because they didn't understand it. This is called decoding. When you are the sender, you are encoding a message to somebody. However, whatever it is. When it comes to the receiver, they're decoding that message. If they can decode it correctly, you have a better chance of that project being successful. But if their decoder ring isn't working, if they're on the wrong page, not even the right library, your project isn't going to be successful. You're going to be frustrated. And for those who have contracts and projects, probably not $100 contracts. Probably a couple thousand, maybe $1 million. You want the CEO coming knocking your door going, "Can you explain to me how we lost $500,000? And you're going, I sent the message out, but nobody on the team could decode it. How important is your message? How important is your team? What are you going to do to make them successful? Next, I like to call noise. This is where we're going to hover a bit. Noise is anything that interferes with your message. The receiver can't understand it if there's a bunch of noise. Now, I'm going to date some people back in the days. Remember a thing called radio? Everybody remember that? Remember when you listen to your favorite music and it might be raining outside and all of a sudden you heard this as you're trying to find that right station and you're fine-tuning it? That's noise. And for those who are young and probably hip, you're on your cell phone and you're talking with someone and going, hey, how are things going? And then up, that's noise. Signal cut out. Other person, you're talking, clear as day. The other person hears choppy messages. And then loses out, always the most important part. Pick me up at, and then they're stuck. I've had that before. Mom says, didn't I tell you to pick me up 6? I didn't hear 6, sorry, it's 8 o'clock, and oops. Messages missed because of noise. This is where we're going to hover a bit. 2011, this is Stats Canada. 2011, there's over 200 languages in Toronto alone. Can you just take a grasp of 200 different languages in the GTA? We're a huge melting pot. If not, we're the most globalized central city in the world. Now I'm looking at this audience right here. With a raise a hand, how many people have English as not your first language? That's like 90% of the room. So you speak, how many people speak more than one language? How many people speak more than 2 languages? Oh dear Lord, so say 3 languages. See, just in this room alone, there's like 4 different languages, maybe 5 or 6 different languages. There's like 15, 16 of you. In your company, your client, you don't have to talk to someone in Dubai to speak Indian. You don't have to go to Tokyo to speak Japanese. You can walk across your office floor and hit 8 different cultures right there. And the way society is and immigration's coming in, their language is not English. It's not their first language. You may be born and raised and bred under a Canadian system and you got English and grammar like that. You think they have it like that? That's 200 different languages. Can you see the beauty that we have, but can you see the problems that we can have as well? I used to work in customer service, and the biggest issue I had was we would speak to clients in different countries, different time zones, and I get the emails, and it's broken English. And I know I'm struggling. It's the Swiss cheese information, because there's words that aren't there. They've spelt words different wrong. They use there, and there. If you understand what I mean, that's not the right there. So I don't know what you're talking about. And then you try to respond back using proper business English, and they respond back with the same question. You're like, listen, we're playing email tag here. Like, we've done this 3 times. What are you not understanding? Until you pick up the phone and realize English is not their first language. It's not their fault they don't understand. What am I doing to make it easy? So I've had to break it down, smaller words, shorter sentences. I feel silly doing it because I'm used to doing it a certain way. But what did we say at the beginning? Do it so the receiver understands it. Then that's how you can be successful in getting things information. All I want to say was hello. Look how many different ways you can say hello. That's just hello. Okay. In Canada, if you look at our English dictionary, we have hundreds of words. How many times have you used the same word for multiple definitions? We'll get to that. Colloquial slang. Oh, notorious for, as I say, dropping things that you not understand. Colloquial slang. Someone who doesn't understand, dropping doesn't mean actually drop something literally. But this is what goes through our society. The younger generation uses a lot of colloquial slang. But let's be fair, every generation used colloquial slang. Your grandparents didn't understand your parents. Your parents don't understand you, and you don't understand your kids. Because every 10 or so years, a different language comes out. Colloquial slang comes out. If I asked you, wow, that car is hot, what do you think that means? Shout it out. What do you think it means? Cool. Well, now you use something different. You use cool. I'm using hot. Now you confuse me. Does it look good?
Good speed, looks.
All right, that's actually my car. Well,
Powerful.
powerful. All right. You sure it doesn't mean this? The car is actually hot. Literally, the temperature is actually hot. It's 30 degrees outside. Sure, that's not what I meant? Or maybe if you're anything from the streets, you know that stolen. The car is hot. That's one word used 3 different ways. So when you're communicating with your team, what word are you using? And wondering why the person doesn't want to communicate with you at all because they think the project's stolen. They don't want anything to do. I'm not going to jail for this. Hands off. And you're struggling because of colloquial slang that we use in our terminology. English is notorious for taking words, and we're lazy. We just want to find one word, find 5 different meanings. I don't have time for this. Hot's one of the examples. Another thing is terminology. When I was about 21, 22, a couple of friends and I went down to Buffalo. And we went down to a restaurant, sat outside, and ordered an iced tea. Lady comes by, says, well, here you go, boys. We had it, almost spit the thing out. It's like, what is this? This tastes not. He said, excuse me, miss, I think your machine might be a little off. Can we get another glass? She goes, oh, sorry, dear, sorry, no problem. Takes it away, brings us back another glass. Tastes exactly the same. I'm like, what is going on here? Why does this thing taste so nasty? It almost tastes like you took tea, boiled it, and put ice in it. So we called the lady back, said, is there something wrong with your iced tea? She goes, well, you ordered iced tea, right? I'm like, yeah. She goes, well, that's what it is. It literally is iced tea. And we said, but we're from Canada. Our tea's a little sweet. Oh, well, why didn't you ask for sweet tea? I didn't ask for sweet what? Where am I getting sweet tea from? But that's exactly the terminology. They think iced tea is sweet. Our version of iced tea is their version of sweet tea. So we could have this conversation all night long arguing over iced tea. But to them, she brought exactly what I asked for. But I didn't get what I wanted until I knew what the terminology was. What terminology are you using in your business that someone in Canada might not understand in India, that might not understand in South America, that might not understand up north in Nineveh. It's the same item. It's just when I tell David this, he looks at it and goes, that's not what we call it here. So what now? Do you know the terminology you are using? Do you understand what your client is using? Do you understand what your team, again, in a different country, worked 20 years in project management, knows as much as you do, they just don't call it that way. Generational. This, what history has said, unlike any other time in our life, we can have up to 5 different generations in the same workplace. You have your traditionalists, you have your baby boomers, Generation X, Generation Y, and Generation Z. Can all be in your business, your company. Think about the terminology each one uses. Think about the ways of communication that each one uses. This is noise. This is what can either slow down production or speed it up. It all depends on how you look at it, how you tackle it. Because your CEO is probably a traditionalist. The co-op intern is probably going to be your Generation Y. And you're probably going to be Generation X. How have you been trained? How do you learn? How do you think? How do you use your technology? Are you all about text and email? Generation Y and Z are. Traditionalists use a phone because it's what you call. That's what you use a phone for. So when you're looking for your boss, and he hasn't answered the 500 texts you've sent, he has no idea why it keeps popping up. Probably talked to his grandson and had it disconnected so he can't receive this beeping message that possibly interferes with him. I've worked in companies where my boss doesn't like me walking and talking to him. You have to write a note, or worst of all, you have to type it all out, print it, bring it to him, and sit on his desk and stand there while he reads it over. Like I've got nothing else better to do for the next 20 minutes but to sit here as you read bit by bit by bit. And then stop and go, why did you use this word? Did you not know what I forgot, you don't know what that means. This is the problem. Who are you dealing with? Who are your clients? Who are your bosses? Who are your managers? Noise, traditionalists, baby boomers, X, Y, and Z. Because you're working with them. Your client might be a Generation Z and walks in with ripped shirts, t-shirt, hat backwards, but they're worth $1 million. To you, the way they come and communicates, oh, this person doesn't really understand the business. This person doesn't really respect the job. Sure, but they're keeping the lights on. They got money. To them, a suit and tie, why would I want to do that in a business meeting? They don't get it. Traditionalists come in a tuxedo for what? A business meeting? The different ways in which we communicate. Here's mom. Mom wants 2% of milk. Does that seem easy enough? Sure. Tells her daughter, who sits there and tells Billy, her brother, goes and tells dad, and dad thinks, oh, you need 2 bags of milk. Everybody remember the game Broken Telephone?
Yeah.
How many ever had to experience that? Broken telephone is great when you're playing kids' game. It's a nightmare when you're doing big projects. If this is happening, that's a noise. How are you going to combat that? Do you have to actually circumnavigate and go right to the source? Do you trust the person who's giving the information? You have a team. Does your team understand how to filter out information so you get exactly what was given to you, what was asked, so that the end result, the boss gets exactly what they asked for, the client gets exactly what they asked for, and nobody's staying late till 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, ripping the hair out of their heads because you got the wrong information. We failed the project because that happened. I did production for a big event. It was a fashion show. And this was 6 o'clock in the morning. We're all setting up. Big truck rolls up, we got stage, lights, cameras, a whole 9 yard. About 3 or 4 hours to set up this stage. So we're there from 6 in the morning, offloading all kinds of gear. Client walks in, looks here and says, oh, the stage is over there. Can you guys move everything there and move it over here? I'm sorry, you want to do what? Yeah, this looks nice, but it's in the wrong location. It should have been on this side, because we're using this side of the room for something else. That's not what the supervisor said. Last night we did a production meeting, and he said it's going over here. And the client now walks in, and this all of a sudden wants it over on this side. Well, guess what? Boss was told that, but it actually went through the secretary, went through the assistant, who forgot to tell us that everything here was changed to this side. So now you're gonna pull up 3 hours worth of work and make it set up in an hour. You want to know what panic mode is? you want to hear people cuss language that you never heard before? Okay, because of broken telephones, of communication that didn't go according to plan. A response to your message is what we call feedback. Feedback can be positive, it can be negative. But I want you to know feedback is what keeps the communication going. All right, feedback keeps the communication going. Without it, it's really effective. Anything that doesn't exist. So if we think about feedback like this, if you take someone who is your sender, which is you, all right, and you're sending out your message, and it's going to your receiver. So we understand this process. I'm sending a message to someone for them to do something for me. It's simple. But then we also have noise, right? Noise comes in. And I like to say it wants to hijack your message. So we understand that noise comes in to disrupt whatever message you are trying to send out. This is what feedback does. The purpose of feedback is to help get through noise. If I tell Ed something, I tell David something, but they never respond back, I'm going on the assumption that they understood what I said. Until a week later, a month later, I'm sitting here and realizing that my Google Calendar went down. That's awesome. Oh, but Ed told me 3 weeks ago that it was going to go down for a month. Wait, no, I didn't get that. You saw the email? Oh, but I don't do emails. Ed should have called me. You see where the confusion is going already? So now Ed's upset why he's getting yelled at, being called irresponsible. No, he did his due diligence. He did his job. But noise came in. If you only did the feedback, people responded back to the information to ask, sorry, just to clarify, when is it going to happen? Oh, okay, Tuesday. I thought it was Wednesday. You see how easy that could have been to solve an issue? Feedback is not a bad thing. Feedback, I like to think, is not negative. Feedback is what we do in Toastmasters. How do you know you've actually achieved your goal? How do you know you've done something right? Feedback. How many people get feedback from their boss? Project is done and you get feedback. Few people. Is the feedback great or is it bad?
Mix.
All depends.
Mix.
I bet. There's a saying in the audio industry, we say this: if nobody talks to you, it means the job went well. Because usually they only come to you when something goes wrong. So our feedback is when the event is done, I stand here and I do one of these things. Nobody coming, nobody's coming, nobody's coming. Good, success. The minute you see 3 people coming your way, you're going, great. They're gonna tell me how bad it was. So how do you receive your feedback? Do you give your team feedback? The dairy milk chocolate was feedback for something that was accomplished. So when you hear that, what are you gonna do? Probably gonna wanna do tabletop the next time, because you know you get some back. And because he said something and you all responded to the challenge of coming up here, it encourages Nitesh to want to do it again, the tabletop. That's how feedback works. Baby's crying, mom comes to console the child. Feedback. Do not say anything, just hold the baby. The baby feels comforted. It's feedback. Doctor has a call, here's the alarms going off, says, hey, code red, code red. Pick up the phone. It's feedback. It's a response to something that's going on. So now what? You have all these things coming at you. Senders, messages, you're a receiver, you got noise, feedback. My goodness, your head must be spinning. Going, so then what do I do with all this information, Clement? This is a lot for me to handle. Glad you asked. I'm going to help you out here. You're the sender. You're going to send a message. This is what you want to do. Be clear. What is it that you want someone to understand? Be clear about it. Even if you have to pass it to a second person for them to see they understood it, be clear so that you don't get caught up in noise. Second thing is patience. Not everybody responds the same way to information. And you get flustered. And what flustered people do, they send the same message again and again. And it gets angrier, and the email instead of font 10 is now font 56, and you're going, why are you yelling at me? You're not patient. Remember, you have different generations. Someone who may be 80 doesn't communicate with someone who's 28. Be patient. And this is where I say, know your audience. Who are you communicating to? How are they responding? How do they respond? What method works for them might not work for you. But know your audience. Do they like to be spoken to? Is FaceTime the best way to communicate through Skype? Is email the best way to talk? Know your audience. If you're the receiver, here's the other thing. You're going to have to listen. Yeah, I know. You're going to have to listen. Remember that graph with 45%? God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. There's a reason why. So we can listen twice as much as we speak. It sounds funny, but I've been in a meeting, and I've walked out, and I'm sitting there going, shoot, what was said? I'm sure what they said was important. No, because we kept talking and talking, and we weren't really listening to what the person had to say. That's important. If you're going to be receiving a message, are you listening? Next thing you're going to have is clarification. If you don't understand something, ask. I know. I've been a project manager for 10 years. I've done this business 100 times. I've done millions of clients and hundreds of millions of dollars a deal. Why do I need to clarify something? Because you could be wrong. That's why. If you don't understand, don't let your pride get in the way. Pride comes before a fall. That's the biggest thing I've learned is doing events, is that when I don't ask for clarification, I think I know it all, and we set it all up, only to realize that we're wrong. You're only as good as your last gig. That's everything that I've learned, is you're only as good as your last gig. It doesn't matter the last 50 you've done. It's the last one you've done. Only because you didn't ask, what time should I be there? 8 a.m. or 8 p.m.? That's a big difference. All right? Next thing about being clear, passion is feedback. Ask. Have a conversation that's going on. Final note, effective communication takes time and it takes work. Just like building that cake and mixing it up, it's not going to be done overnight. It's going to take time, it's going to take work. But if communication means something to you, if you want to work with people, and you will be, if you want to deal with clients, and you will have to, and they're not going to be as smart as you, I get it, because no one else is, you're going to have to communicate, you're going to have to take your time, you have to be patient, you have to balance through all the noise, the different generations. The most important to understand this, your message means something to you, it'll mean something to the next person you communicate to if you put the effort into it. That's how you're going to do effective communication. So thank you for your time. I hope this message will help you out.